Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, if we thought Disney's Star Wars The Acolyte was a disastrous dumpster fire after getting canceled literally less than a month after the series finally wrapped up, and of course everybody having their complete and total meltdown over it and blaming a lot of people like me and a lot of other major YouTubers out there that have done a much better job of reporting on all of this kind of stuff, of course it was all our fault. It was all, of course, that Disney was now listening to all of those toxic white males out there, you know, the people that pay your bills and then generally being your main primary audience for a lot of the Star Wars brand out there, and of course because you decided to try to attract a new and different audience out there, you have fallen flat time and time again. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we thought the disastrous dumpster fire of Star Wars The Acolyte couldn't get any worse, some of the early tax documents have officially come out, and yes, boys and girls, this movie ended up costing, or this television show ended up costing way more money than the initial estimates were out there and turned into one more disastrous dumpster fire for the Walt Disney Company, costing them hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's only probably going to get worse there because I don't even know if these are the last of the tax filings we will end up getting, ladies and gentlemen, but it could be very fun to see. Needless to say, this did cost Star Wars hundreds of millions of dollars, turned into a disastrous dumpster fire, and no wonder Bob Iger is pulling back on all of the major productions over there at Star Wars because he can't continue to handle these kind of disasters. 2 + 2 still equals 4, boys and girls. God is still on his throne in heaven, and go woke, go broke exists for a reason. And The Acolyte is just another prime example of that. So we're going to check this article from thatparkplace.com, getting all of the juicy details of exactly what these tax filings show us and how much of a disastrous dumpster fire this thing truly is just so far. Because at the end of the day, remember, we'll never know what the marketing budgets for these kind of things cost, but we know they're absolutely outrageous. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, we are pushing out content as often as we absolutely can, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Please let us a comment in the section down below. Does it surprise you at all that how much more outrageous amounts of money this television show actually ended up costing, or does this line up with everything else we've heard about the massive, overly inflated budgets coming out of Hollywood left and right? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. So from that parkplace.com and our dear sweet friend Jonas J. Campbell. Exclusive. Star Wars The Acolyte real cost exploded to $230 million according to new tax documents. And that's how we can easily say this this television show easily cost them upwards of $300 million between marketing and everything else. I mean, you saw all the press tours, you saw all the craziness, all the, oh, I think Star Wars is gay, I think all nerds are gay, yada, 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 yada. And of course, paying all of the Access Media shills to come out there and hang out with Leslie Headland and hang out with them and had all of their expenses paid for it and all of that other kind of stuff, all in order to give them good reviews. So this is something that we know definitely costs in excess of $300 million when you factor in all of that nonsense. Exclusive. United Kingdom tax documents followed by the Walt Disney Company's UK branch reveals that Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company spent over 172 million British pounds, $231 million USD on the production of The Acolyte, a prequel series set in the Disney Star Wars universe. In an interview with Vanity Fair, the Acolyte series creator Leslie Headland publicly claimed that the show cost $180 million, which was assumed to be by several to be stated in US dollars. It is evident that if Headland had a knowledge of the series' financials, that she was more than likely referring to the amount in Great British pounds. According for exchange rates at the time of this article, this means that The Acolyte cost almost $230 million USD. That is absolutely insane. Where did the budget go? It didn't go to the costumes. It didn't go to the effects. It certainly didn't go to the storytelling. Is it literally just all the diversity, inclusion, and equity people you've got to hire in order to capitulate to some kind of weird woke mob out there that doesn't show up to watch your television show? I mean, literally, this was the least watched Disney Star Wars series in history, and it had the worst audience score that Rotten Tomatoes had ever seen for any kind of Star Wars property. And you spent over $230 million on this? Holy cow. No wonder Bob Iger's pulling in the reins over there. With 8 episodes in the series, this means that Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy allowed the budget of the now canceled show to balloon to $28.7 million per episode. Five Nights at Freddy's movie didn't cost that much money to produce. An entire movie that was actually financially successful at the box office. They spent that per episode on this series. Talk about a serious loss. I mean, man, return on investment, a big fat negative. Holy cow. also while failing to attract an audience. UK tax filings for the Acolyte only account for what was spent on the series before September 24th, 2023. That's right. We're not done. This show cost them more than that. So it's possible this figure might be adjusted as an additional tax filing surface. The show was released on June 4th, 2024 and failed to register on the Nielsen's top 10 overall chart and only appeared on the top 10 original streaming chart at 448 million watch minutes before dropping off the charts altogether in the show's 4th week. Weird how that worked. Boy, I'll tell you what, that's a good spending of money right there. That's a good spending of money, Kathleen Kennedy, to not even be able to hit the top overall Nielsen charts even once, even though you spent almost $300 million. That's insane. The show did manage to reappear on the Nielsen's top 10 original streaming charts by July 16th when the finale aired, garnered 335 million watch minutes before ultimately being canceled by the Walt Disney Company. Kathleen Kennedy championed The Acolyte and Leslie Headland in the same New York Times piece that obfuscated the astronomical spending Kennedy approved for the Star Wars flop. Kennedy said, "My belief is that storytelling does need to be representational of all people. That's an easy decision for me." Yeah, easy enough for you to spend almost $300 million on it. Guess what? Not such an easy decision for Bob Iger when the bill finally came due. Operating within these giant franchises now, with social media and the level of expectation, it's terrifying. I think Leslie had struggled a little bit with it. I think that a lot of women who step into the Star Wars struggle with this a bit more, because the fan base being so male-dominated that they sometimes get attacked in ways that can be quite personal. Oh, yes. The fans went after and attacked it. It's all the fans hope. We're just a bunch of evil men out there that hate anything that women do. Yada, 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 yada. Leslie Headland would later state that if The Acolyte failed, it would be her fault. Well, there you go. I don't know. I think the overbladed budget approved by Kathleen Kennedy probably had a lot to do with this, too. Because, I mean, seriously, think about this. If this television show cost like $50 million or $100 million, Disney would probably have greenlighted it for a second season. But you spent almost $300 million on this show between production and marketing. That's insane. Of course it was canceled. You literally never even made it into the top 10 overall of Nielsen charts. You got beat by Bluey every single week. Star Wars got beat by Bluey, boys and girls. Leslie Headland would later state if The Acolyte failed, it would be her fault. However, The Acolyte is just another big-budget Lucasfilm project that fails to justify the exorbitant spending that the Walt Disney Company Chief Executive Officer Bob Iger continues to turn a blind eye to out of control creative budgets. According to UK tax filings, Lucasfilm has already spent at least $362 million making Andor, a show that very few watched, as many saw as the best of the Disney Plus Star Wars. Outside of Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy spent almost $170 million making a Willow reboot, only for Bob Iger to wipe the show from existence and take the expense as a complete loss for tax purposes. As of the writing of this article, there has been no legal commercial options to purchase or view Willow. That's right. I mean, you talk about, billions of dollars have been wasted on the Disney Star Wars franchise, on the Disney Star Wars buying this and trying to turn it into a girls brand. That's what they tried to do. That's what Disney does. It makes things into girls' brands, and clearly that's exactly what Kathleen Kennedy was trying to do. She was trying to own all the racists and all the men out there and everything else and all the sexists and go out there and try to make Star Wars into something that it was never meant to be. And they have failed miserably at this. This is literally a franchise that the Disney company already spent billions just acquiring the rights to, and have wasted billions of more dollars literally just killing off a franchise. You want to watch how to destroy a franchise in 10 easy steps? Just look at what Disney has done with Star Wars. This used to be a money printing machine. Even when there wasn't movies out there in the theaters, you still always had a buttload of these toys selling constantly nonstop. Now every time you go to Walmart, you see the drastic amount of reduction that there's been in the Star Wars section over there at Walmart, and you see a bigger and bigger selection of Star Wars toys over at Ollie's, a discount brand. That's what Disney Star Wars has turned. That's what Disney Star Wars has turned into. Kathleen Kennedy has destroyed it so much to where it is considered a dead franchise by many of the fans out there, and is completely and totally dying in every shape or form. Every new product they put out practically ends up being worse than the last one. It sells less, gets worse ratings, and ends up not selling any toys in any way, shape, or form. So yes, does it surprise us in any way, shape, or form that they spent almost $300 million on this disastrous dumpster fire? No, that's what Disney is good at. But guess what? The chickens have finally come home to roost. The bills are getting called out, and now you are not going to see anywhere near as much of his hot, disastrous dumpster fire from Disney Star Wars under Kathleen Kennedy, because Bob Iger has finally said no more. And after finding out this kind of budget, does it surprise anybody? This kind of stuff can't go on forever because eventually you run out of other people's money.